In 2017, Urbana, Ohio was the kind of place where most people didn't lock their doors during the day. Just over an hour west of Columbus, the area was largely rural, known for open fields, quiet roads, and a slower pace of life. Donovan A. Nicholas lived in a farmhouse on Hare Road, just outside of town. He was 14 years old, a middle school student. He lived with his father and his father's longtime girlfriend, 40-year-old Heidi Faye Taylor. The house wasn't isolated, but it wasn't crowded by neighbors either. It had a long driveway, a barn, and enough space to feel private. Heidi had been in Donovan's life for several years. She wasn't his mother, but she had taken on many roles that parents often do. She made meals, kept the house in order, worked full-time, and was involved in Donovan's school life. Friends later described her as dependable and focused. People who worked with her said she was friendly, but no nonsense. She was the kind of person who always got the job done and rarely asked for help. Donovan's father worked during the day and left early in the morning. His job kept him away for long hours, which meant Heidi and Donovan spent a lot of time alone together at the house. There was no public record of issues in the household. No domestic complaints, no past legal trouble, no history of calls to police. Everything appeared stable. On the surface, it looked like a normal, quiet home. April 6th, 2017 was a Thursday. School was in session, and by 6 a.m., Heidi and Donovan were both awake. Donovan's father had already left for work. There was no sign of any conflict the night before, no reported arguments, and nothing to suggest that anything unusual was about to happen. At 6:09 a.m., the local 911 center received a call. It was Donovan. His voice was calm, but what he said immediately drew attention from emergency responders. He told the dispatcher that someone had been seriously hurt inside the home. He stayed on the phone and answered their questions. He told them there had been a violent act. He named the victim and said he was responsible. But then, a moment later, he said something else. He claimed that he didn't do it. Someone else did, a different version of him. Officers from the Champaign County Sheriff's Office arrived minutes later. They found Donovan at the scene. He did not attempt to run or hide. He cooperated and repeated what he had said on the phone. Someone in the house had been attacked. He brought the officers inside. Inside the home, first responders found the body of Heidi Taylor. She had suffered significant injuries, both from a sharp object and from a firearm. EMTs confirmed that she had died at the scene. The house was otherwise undisturbed. No one else was inside. Nothing appeared to be missing. There was no forced entry. The situation was immediately treated as a homicide. Donovan was taken into custody. He did not resist. When investigators questioned Donovan, he told them the same thing he had said to the dispatcher. He admitted that he had carried out the act, but said it wasn't really him. He told detectives that a different personality had taken over. He named that personality Jeff. He said Jeff was a part of him, but not someone he could control. According to Donovan, Jeff had been part of his mind for some time, months, maybe years, and would sometimes speak to him, sometimes even take over entirely. He claimed that it was Jeff who had attacked Heidi and not Donovan himself. To police, this raised immediate legal and psychological questions. They ordered a full mental health evaluation. Prosecutors, meanwhile, had to decide how to proceed with the case. Donovan was 14. Under Ohio law, juveniles can be transferred to adult court if a judge determines that the crime is serious enough and that the individual is unlikely to be rehabilitated in the juvenile system. The crime was unquestionably severe, but the case wasn't straightforward. Donovan had no prior record. His teachers and classmates described him as soft-spoken and respectful. There were no warnings, no signs of violence, and no evidence of prior incidents in the home. Still, given the nature of the act and the statements Donovan made to police, the court ordered a transfer hearing. At the transfer hearing, prosecutors argued that Donovan should be tried as an adult. The judge reviewed expert evaluations, including psychiatric reports that said Donovan had been struggling with significant mental health challenges. One expert diagnosed him with dissociative identity disorder, a rare and highly debated condition in which a person experiences multiple distinct identities or personality states. Other experts were less certain. Some said Donovan's behavior could be better explained by a mix of trauma, stress, and adolescent mental health struggles. Some pointed to the fact that Jeff the Killer, the name Donovan had given to the personality he claimed was responsible, came from a popular internet horror character. This raised questions. Was Donovan copying a story he had seen online? Was this fantasy or something deeper? Ultimately, the juvenile court judge ruled that Donovan should be transferred to adult court. The ruling stated that the juvenile system was not equipped to manage a case of this severity. Prosecutors charged him with aggravated murder. If convicted, he would face life in prison with the possibility of parole after several decades. In adult court, Donovan's legal team argued that he should not be held fully responsible for his actions. They presented psychiatric testimony supporting the idea that Donovan suffered from a serious mental illness. They said he had lost control during the incident and did not fully understand what he was doing. The prosecution countered that the act itself was deliberate and planned. They presented evidence that Donovan had waited until his father left for work. He had access to the weapons in the home and had used them with intent. They said he knew what he was doing, and the statements about Jeff were a way to avoid taking responsibility. The jury heard both sides and ultimately convicted Donovan of aggravated murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 28 years. At the time, he was just 16.